Have you awakened from surgery to find out that something went wrong? How wrong was it? 1. I looked at the clock. It said 9 a.m. when the doctor told me to count backwards from 100. I got to 97. The next thing I saw was the clock. It now said 9:05. I said, that was quick. The doctor looked at me horrified, and then over my head to the anesthesiologist. The next time I woke up was in the recovery room. I woke up during my surgery. 2. Yes, I had abdominal surgery in 2003. I was supposed to be discharged on day 3. I didn't wake up until day 3. For the next 2 days I was panicking and saying I couldn't breathe. I had to use the restroom and the nurse left me in there struggling to breathe. I panicked and pulled the cord for help. I spent the next 2 days being treated like complete garbage by the nurses. They would roll their eyes at me and look at my husband and ask him if I had anxiety or panic disorder. They begrudgingly gave me breathing treatments. They were absolutely horrible to me. My surgeon had a family emergency and couldn't be there on day 5 when I was finally getting released. Her partner was the one who came in and released me. He asked if we had any questions and I asked him why I was having trouble breathing. He looked at my husband and I like we had lost our minds. That's when he told us that my lungs had collapsed during surgery. If you've ever been in the hospital, you know that the doors to the rooms don't slam. My husband slammed ours as he went storming out of our room to the nurses' station. It was a slow roar and then all you could hear with him screaming at them. He made every single one of those nurses come into my room and line up in front of that doctor while he chewed them out and made them apologize to me. That's when the doctor realized that not one of them had bothered to read my chart and see that my lungs have collapsed. After they left the room, the doctor apologized to us and finished releasing us personally. He then walked out of the room and we could hear him laying it down out there to every single one of those nurses. There was one aide who came in every day and treated me as if I was her own mother. She washed my hair. She gave me a sponge bath and helped me brush my teeth. I made sure the doctor knew that she was the only person that treated me like a human being. 3. I had severe chest pain, was taken to the ER. Doctors determined I was having a heart attack. 6 hours later I woke up in an empty operating room, except for a guy sitting in a glass enclosure. He immediately started screaming over the PA system he is breathing. Immediately doctors and the team came running into the OR and began working on me. I later learned the doctors were going to pronounce my death to my family, after working on me for 6 hours. The next day the team came to IC to say, I was truly a miracle. I thank God often for letting me live another 13 years, and still going strong. 4. I went in for a simple hysterectomy in July 2022. When I woke up in recovery I was told there had been a little complication and they did not do the surgery. The complication, I flatlined on the operating table and they had to do CPR to get my heart going again. This was 100% the anesthesiologist's fault as is issued too much too fast and said when my heart rate started to drop he administered something to bring it back up but it didn't work in time. However, he tried to blame it on me, saying I must have had a reaction. This was not my first surgery, and I never had any reaction to anesthesia before, including during a 12-hour maxillofacial surgery to correct TMJ. I did end up having the surgery in December 2022 and oddly enough, there was no mention of this issue in my medical records. I know this because I said something to the anesthesiologist the morning of my surgery in December and he couldn't find any record of it. I told him to just ask anyone that was there. They all remembered it. After my surgery in December I received a very detailed record of the entire surgery, what was administered, the time it was administered, the time the first cut was made, etc. Yet there is nothing like this from July. Recovery from the CPR was more painful than the actual surgery. 5. 1998. I donated a kidney to my mother. I knew I would only be in post-op for a couple of hours, but even in my haze after surgery, I realized I had been in post-op for much longer than that. It had been several hours and I would still be in post-op for several more hours. When I was finally moved to a room, the surgeon came in and very briefly explained that after they sewed me up they had to go back in for a quick repair. No big deal. Okay again. A bit of a haze. Fast forward to 2 days later when a nurse, who happened to be the sister of a friend, came into my room and said, "Girl, we almost lost you." What happened? As they were wheeling me to post-op, my blood pressure bottomed out. They did an emergency call to have the surgeon return to the operating room. They opened me back up and the clamp had blown off my renal artery and I was bleeding internally. They had to reclamp, close me up again, and do a blood transfusion. Bottom line, I almost died on the operating table after giving a kidney to my mother. We didn't tell my mother about it until a few weeks later and she had a complete meltdown. She lived for 10 years after the transplant and today I'm healthy as I can be. #blessed. 6. Not actually gone wrong, just humorous. I was having surgery on my nose. I woke up and reached for my nose. My eyes were taped with gauze. I felt someone grab my hand and push it back down. I sleepily said, "I just need to scratch my nose." My doctor calmly replied, "We'll scratch it for you." I woke up again at some point, except this time my arms were tied down as well as still blinded with gauze and tape. I heard a male voice tell someone I was awake again. This could have been frightening if it hadn't been so dopey. Something made me immediately fall back asleep. I found out later my nose was peeled back and laying on my forehead at the time I tried to scratch it. 7. I was told I have a 5.7 centimeters cyst on my left ovary and my fallopian tube was twisted. As I was going under I heard the surgeon saying something about a Mrs. McDonald close to my last name but not close enough for me to worry. When I woke up everyone was calling me Mrs. McDonald and they told me my hysterectomy had no complications. Yep, I was 23 years old. I started screaming at the top of my lungs that was not me. They had gotten the lady in the bed next to me confused with me, also Maggie M., And they had not done her surgery yet. Pathology on my uterus came back as perfectly healthy per the doctor, and they had removed that undiagnosed cyst while he was inside. They left both my ovaries. I should have sued that pants off the hospital, but at the time I was just devastated and not thinking.